When you start wanting to record video for your business, it is kind of a disease that you know, at first you might be okay with recording with your phone, and then you might be okay with like a slightly okay video camera. But then you start wanting to upgrade and you start doing things like searching YouTube or searching Google for the best DSLR for recording video. And you find yourself with a DSLR that you don't know how to operate. So today, I'm going to tell you some of the best settings for your DSLR to record video. Hello, I'm Jessica, and if you are new to my channel, welcome. You're going to love it here. I promise. I teach you hashtag all the video marketing things so you can make hashtag all the monies. So if you're wanting to get your business on video or ramp up your business's presence on video, I'm your girl. And today, like I said, we are chatting about the best settings for your DSLR camera for video. Now, a lot of you may have a camera that you got for Christmas a couple years ago because it took really good pictures of your kids, or you have just purchased a camera specifically for video. All DSLRs have the same options regardless of what brand it is. So just know when I'm showing you my camera, you can do the same thing on your camera. It just may look a little bit different. Now, I want to tell you a little story. I have always loved photography. Like from the time I was probably 7, I wanted to be a National Geographic wildlife photographer. And that continued until I was old enough to realize that my butt would get eaten by a lion, and I gave up that dream. But I have always loved photography. It was actually the very first business I ran straight out of college, was a photography business. Now, with that, one of the things that you can make a photographer real mad real quick about is that you think you can pull the camera straight out of the box and use it on auto, and you're now a photographer because it's a better camera. And while it does definitely take better pictures and better video straight out of the box than other options, you need to know how to work it in a more professional way to get more professional settings. So I learned how to work my camera on manual back when in my photography days and when I was first starting in the photography world as an adult, and it has paid for itself over and over again. So I'm going to give you some of my favorite tricks. I'm recording right now on a Canon 70D, and I will link that below. It is literally my favorite DSLR I've ever used for video purposes. It's not perfect. You can definitely buy a higher end, but I love it. So any of the settings I'm going to show you are on a Canon 70D. So if you're on a Canon DSLR, they're going to be very similar. But if you're on a Nikon, it might be in a different place, but that's okay. So first and foremost, you want to turn your camera to manual. This means that you are controlling all of the settings. It's not automatically reading your environment and doing it for you. The reason is our cameras aren't as smart as we let them think they are, right? And sometimes we want a little more light on our video, even though we're inside in a dark room. For instance, right now, as I'm recording, it is fairly gloomy outside. It's kind of rainy and cold and dark. So I have some external lights, and if I didn't have my camera on manual, it would look something like this. That's not pretty. It's just not pretty. So this is why you want to turn your camera on manual, so you can get the best possible look for your videos that you possibly can. Now, I will say there are some fallbacks with this. One is that if you're recording in a room with windows and it is a cloudy day or it is a sunny day, you will be fine because you'll be able to leave your settings exactly the same and just continue recording as you normally would. If you're recording on a day when it's kind of only partly cloudy and the sun keeps going behind the clouds, you may have one setting that works right now, and when the clouds go over the sun, you have to change it again, and when the sun comes back out, you have to change it again. So it can get hairy, but I promise it's worth it. Because of the reason I just showed you. Nobody wants dark, gloomy videos, and that's even with extra light. I have extra light going on in here, and it's not that dark outside. It's not like it's nighttime. So first thing we want to talk about is your aperture. The aperture on a camera is the amount of time the inside of the lens essentially stays open. So the lower the aperture, the longer it stays open. What this does is, one, it creates the blurred background effect if you have it low enough because of the way that it focuses. And two, it allows you to record video in lower light situations. So if you're using the kit lens that comes with your camera, you may not be able to get it a low enough aperture to blur the background, so you might want to check out a more premium lens. I will link the lens I use below, so if you do have a Canon, you can check on that. Now the aperture could go anywhere from like 1.4 all the way up to like 8, 9, whatever. So what happens is at 1.4, it's going to perform really well in low light situations because it's letting more light in with every snap or with every frame. With that, you're also going to have a smaller focus area. So you will only have a small piece of the picture that's actually in focus. So it might not be the best settings if you're moving around a lot or whatever, but it does give this nice blurred background when you're just standing here doing talking head videos. So first and foremost, check the aperture and figure out where you want it. I leave mine on the lowest possible setting for my lens all the time, and that is 2.8. The next thing I want to talk about is the shutter speed. You can reduce or increase this based on your lighting needs as well. So you can take it down to bring in more light or crank it up to let in less light. Now, one thing I do need to point out about this is if you decrease the shutter speed too much for a video, it will decrease the quality of your video and you'll get a grainy video. So you want to try and keep this as high speed as you possibly can with your current lighting conditions. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about is the ISO. So this is the same thing you experience when you used to buy film, if you're old enough to remember buying film. So a fun fact about me, I used to work in a photo lab in college at the Walmart, and I would sell film. You know, people would come in and say, okay, what kind of film do I need? This is the kind of thing I'm doing. And we would sell them film based on their needs. The higher your ISO speed, the better your camera will do in low light. So anything from about 800 all the way up to as high as it goes are going to be your low light settings. Now again, if you increase the ISO too much, you're going to increase the graininess on your video way more than you'd like to have. So you want to try and keep this as low as possible. And then the sunnier or the more light you have, the more your ISO can come down, and you can just let the light illuminate you instead of letting the camera settings work for you. So a good way to remember this is the lower you go on exposure or shutter speed and the lower you go on aperture or f-stop, the lighter your video will be. And with the ISO, the higher you go, the lighter your video will be. So you want to play with those and work them to the best of your abilities. But do remember that if you crank them up too much and make the camera do too much for you, you'll get grainy, kind of blurry, noise-filled videos, and nobody wants that, especially when you're trying to record them for your business. Those are my favorite settings for shooting video on my Canon DSLR. That is how you work your camera on manual in a nutshell. Obviously, there's way more than that, but that's just kind of something to get you started. If you love this tutorial, hit me up with a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe so you don't ever miss another video marketing tip with me. Bye, y'all.